Welcome to the Engaged by Design podcast, where we explore agile leadership strategies to help you innovate, engage, and thrive in the changing and evolving world of higher education. I'm Vernon Smith, joined again by my partner, Michael Cottam.
Hello, everybody. I'm happy to join the podcast again today. You know, it's a celebration every single week we get to talk.
Yes, it is. Last week, we talked about reflection, and it was a nod to 18th century entrepreneurs, also known as pirates, if you missed it. Arr. Key points from the episode include the principle of reflection, that it should be embedded, regular, not random, on the individual, team, and organizational levels. Reflection is essential for improvement, for processes, habits, and for innovative cultures. And today we're sailing on through the macro leadership model to our final destination with the final step, ovation. Yes, O is for ovation. This step is all about recognition, intentionally celebrating the work, growth, and commitment of your team. Michael, why is ovation such a critical part of the macro leadership framework?
Thanks, Vernon. Critical because it brings closure to the leadership cycle. It's not just about being nice. Ovation is about reinforcing what really matters. And you really get more of what you reward. So recognition has the power to energize the team, to build trust among team members, and to signal that their work contributes to something larger than themselves. It creates meaning. And so, as I share in the Macro Leadership book, when we take the time to thank and to celebrate others, it deepens engagement and it creates a culture of shared purpose. And this is particularly important when we note in the research that employee engagement is at an all-time low. In the US, Gallup runs a survey. Actually, they run the survey worldwide. But they collect information about how employees are engaged. They call it the Q12. The fourth question in the Q12 survey is, quote, "In the last 7 days, I have received recognition or praise for doing good work," close quote. That's the question. The results over the last several years are often disappointing. The 2025 number is 27%. That means that roughly 1 in 4 employees receive recognition for their work regularly, and 3 of 4 do not. And that's not good. Add to that the Gallup finding that employees are 4 times as likely to be engaged at work if they strongly agree that they get the right amount of recognition for the work that they do, close quote. 4 times as likely to be engaged. So, if we get recognition right, or ovation, as we put it into the macro leadership framework, then we have a much better chance of engaging and keeping our best employees. So, Vernon, ovation really matters. It matters to the people on your team, and it matters to the bottom line of your organization financially.
Michael, this Gallup survey is something that I've heard about for years. I know it's consistent and it's been proven and reliable. Think of the last time you told someone thank you in one way or another in the last 7 days, and think about the last 7 days of whether you've been thanked for the work that you've done. That's an indication of your engagement, which we need to really have effective organizations, and it does affect our bottom line. Michael, it looks like we pay lip service to recognition, but somehow it's not hitting the target. Let's start with some baseline actions that any leader can take to improve their ovation skills. What are some simple things we can do to get better?
Vernon, there's a lot we can do, and it's simple. It doesn't cost a lot of money. It doesn't cost a lot of time. We do need to be deliberate. We need to make a plan. And we need to use some good design thinking skills to match up the recognition plans that we put in place to the needs of our people. Not everyone needs the same thing. We can create a culture of gratitude in our meetings and in our communication, electronic and in person, in our emails, in our chats, in our Slack channels. Anywhere we connect with each other, we can create that culture. As leaders, we need to evaluate and sometimes redesign any of our complex or organization wide systems for recognition as well. And I tell a story about building such a program in the Ovation chapter of Macro Leadership.
Michael, we have built award-winning reward and recognition systems at several colleges and universities. Some of these systems are still in use today, as you know, and I would say that those reward and recognition systems that are aligned well with the organization's core values and reinforced by the leaders and the culture are still hanging in there and doing their job. There are big systems, but really great applications always start with small behaviors.
That's absolutely true. We slip into talking about big systems for the organization, but gratitude and thank yous and recognition starts with everyday conversations. It's the small things that matter most. In fact, in my own recent leadership practice, I learned to end each week by writing, well, handwritten thank you notes and mailing them out to team members. It was something I started actually during the lockdowns of the pandemic when we didn't see each other. It made a huge difference. The digital thank yous that we send in our emails and our chats and our Zoom conference calls, they're really important, but they're ephemeral. They're gone. And when you physically write a note, it seems kind of archaic these days to do it, but when you physically write a note, it becomes much more symbolic and meaningful. Think of the last time you received something like that, where someone took the time to write a note for you and to hand it to you, to leave it on your desk, or to mail it to you. It makes a huge difference, and it sticks with you more than the perfunctory thank you at an end of an email, right? So on Fridays, I blocked some time. Initially, it was a lot of time because I wasn't very good at it. I would pull out some nice note cards, some card stock or thank you cards that had a lot of space where I could write. I would think about that person that I wanted to recognize, what I was really grateful for, or what I wanted to promote in what they had done that week or the last couple of weeks. And then I send them a personalized message. That small act that I did on a Friday afternoon, it helped in a couple of ways. It helped me to notice the great things that people were doing. It was intentional. It also helped me to communicate my appreciation with clarity and with sincerity. And because I started involving my team in peer recognition, that is, I asked them to tell me, hey, did you catch somebody doing something great? Let me know about it. I'll write them a note. And when I did that, it helped to build a team culture of appreciation and recognizing the good work that everyone was doing under a lot of pressure, frankly.
I remember you doing that, Michael. You mentioned that Friday afternoons were your designated thank you time. My time was usually Sunday evenings. You sent a couple of notes to me, even when I was the provost. That was surprising in a good way, not the bad way of surprises. It's the good way of surprises. Even though we talked a lot, that written note was a big lift for me. Now, what kind of impact did you see from these notes on your teams and others?
It was really powerful, even more powerful than I expected. I thought I was just doing something nice that would maybe help. But months later or years later, people would mention a specific note card, a specific thank you note that they received. And sometimes they would do it in a public forum. We would have a large meeting with a bunch of deans and department chairs, and someone would stand up and say, you know what? I really appreciated this note that Michael sent to me, and I've put it into practice for me and my team. Some people keep them pinned on their walls where they can see them. I do something similar. It's one of those practices that really changes the way that we work with our teams. I know personally, I have kept the notes that I received. I keep them where I can see them. I keep them by my computer monitor. And when the days were really nasty and really hard, I could see that someone did appreciate the work that we did. It reminded me of good things when times were really difficult. So, ovations, recognition, thank yous, gratitude. It's not about flattery, and it's not about sucking up to the boss or sucking up to your teams. It's about making the invisible work that we do visible, recognizable, and valued. We get to celebrate it. So when someone's contribution is named and appreciated, whether that's in private, like through a note, or publicly, it gives their work meaning and momentum, and it carries them individually and the team through the more challenging times when you feel like nobody cares.
And in higher education, we are living in really challenging times right now. Michael, I endorse this practice and habit, and I believe there's something timeless about a handwritten note. And it's really actually unusual these days. It's a simple way. And I know there are leaders out there who still might think about this, okay, write a note, big deal, right? But they still struggle with knowing how to recognize their team members without it feeling unnatural or forced. So, giving thanks is grounding and it opens the door to stronger relationships. At the same time, it can be uncomfortable because it can feel like a vulnerable action.
Hello again, it's Michael interrupting our own podcast, sorry Vernon, with a quick question for you, the listeners. Are you feeling festive? The music should be bringing something on. It's time to receive a medal after you blew up the Death Star. And so, enjoy the feeling of receiving an ovation. Thank you for being our listener. No, seriously, let us know. Do you have a formal recognition plan in place for your team? Does your plan align with your own values or with the values of your organization? And does it promote the behaviors that you want to see promoted within your team? One of the services that Vernon and I can provide is to help you evaluate your rewards and recognition programs. And we can find ways to better align them with your needs, with the preferences of your employees, with the way you want to work. We've noticed, talking with teams over the years, that no two teams are the same. And we've helped them create a system that works for them. We've been there, and we can help. So, just go to the Engage by Design website, click on the consulting menu at the top of the page, and you can schedule a conversation with us to talk through your needs and what you would like to accomplish. We would really love to hear from you.
Michael, what advice do you have for making Ovation authentic?
That is a great question. Ovations or recognitions can sometimes feel hokey or insincere, and making them meaningful and authentic requires, I'll say it requires three things. First, the recognition has to be specific. If you say, thank you, thanks, or great job, it does something. But if you're more specific and you say, let's say you write to somebody, your clear project summary really helped the whole team get aligned on that presentation. Or maybe you say something like, I love the way that you diffused the tension in that retrospective meeting this week. It was hard and you really did a good job. Those kinds of things are specific about an action that somebody takes, and it has real impact beyond that moment. I have to admit that when I began writing thank you notes a few years ago, I struggled figuring out what to say. I thought my words were awkward, Yeah, I still do. And I thought that I wanted to be specific and sincere enough, and it was hard to do on a little card. I had a couple of sentences I could write. And I was writing in ink. I am embarrassed to say that I threw away a lot of cards at first until I learned to be really specific and genuine in my writing.
So, Michael, first thing is the recognition needs to be specific.
Right. It has to be specific. And something that may start out as for me, writing notes was a 2 hour project for a half a dozen cards or something. I got it down to where it was like 30 minutes. It wasn't that hard for me to do, but I had to put in the reps. I had to do the practice. It's like anything you decide to do that's new for you. Okay, so that was the first one, right, Vernon? It has to be specific. So the second one, recognition should be connected to your values. If your team values collaboration, then you celebrate when someone exemplifies collaboration. You're not just rewarding the outcomes, you're reinforcing the how as well as the what when you write them something specific that's connected to your values. For one of my teams, we were really focused on developing our Clifton strengths, which I've talked about in match, assign, and coaching. And because we were trying to develop Clifton strengths, I would write notes that pointed out how I caught them exercising their strengths. I would catch them being deliberative and really improving a project. Or I would catch somebody pointing out all the strategic directions we could take. And I would put that in the note. Of course, you have to choose the values you want to recognize. For us, strengths was a big one, in addition to the university values like learning and innovation and teamwork. So that's the second one.
So, be very specific, align it with and connect it to the values in a real way. What's the third one, Michael?
The third one is recognition needs to be timely. I put this one in here because one annual recognition banquet is not even close to sufficient. The closer that you are in your recognition to the moment of the contribution, the more powerful that ovation will be. I wrote notes weekly to recognize people for things that they did that week or the previous week. Of course, we recognized people at the term or the semester or the every 6 months when we would have a banquet or the year-end timeframes. Those are really important, big events. But how much more does it mean when on Tuesday I receive a letter that my boss or my peer wrote me 2 days ago and it recognized something specifically that I did? Being timely amplifies the impact of the recognition you give.
Those are very helpful. I appreciate that you mentioned in the macro leadership book that ovation doesn't need to always be public or dramatic. It's more effective if it's meaningful. I would also add that you need to know your people, your team, your organization. You have to know what they consider ovation and praise and what they like or really dislike.
Exactly. In fact, I've noticed that for some people, public recognition feels really uncomfortable. It can feel performative, especially if you're an introvert and you just like to get your work done and be behind the scenes. They don't necessarily like to have the spotlight shine on them. I'm actually one of those people. I don't love being put up in front of everybody else, but I do love that thank you note or sincere expressions of appreciation. You have to know your team. Some people thrive with a shout out in the meeting, and in fact, they're mad if you don't give it to them. And others prefer that quiet word of thanks. Just earlier this week, I was talking with a coaching client, and we were talking through the ways that people are recognized. This is a person who hates public recognition. And there's another person on the team who feels completely unappreciated unless there is a big fanfare around things that they did. That's on the same team, people doing similar work. They have different needs. One more thing, not all recognition has to come from the top. One thing that I picked up from Ken Blanchard many years ago was the idea of catching people doing something right.
Catching people doing something right. That's very positive in terms of reinforcement.
Right. And that idea really stuck with me. It trained me to look for what's working, not just what needs fixing, which is a tendency we often have in our teams. We want to fix the bugs. But when you help your team to recognize each other in the moment by catching their peers doing something right and then mentioning it, you create a culture of gratitude that tends to knock down those protective walls that we put up around our work. And I've seen other leaders build powerful recognition cultures as well. A colleague once mentioned to me that they do a Wednesday wins practice. So a middle of the week pick me up. Every Wednesday, they'd send out a team wide email that highlighted specific accomplishments from the week. And it doesn't take much time, but it can create a rhythm of encouragement and visibility. So whether it's Friday thank you notes, Sunday night activities that Vernon would do to recognize people, or a Wednesday wins, whatever the system is, find a rhythm to it and help your teams to recognize each other.
I love that. So, for the leaders listening today, what are some practical steps they can take this week to practice and improve their ovation skills?
Here are three simple things that you can do. Number one, block time for appreciation, just like I did for Fridays, or Vernon did for Sundays, or the Wednesday wins. It has to be a specific time. If you block that time, you'll get it done. If you don't, you won't. So the first one is make time for it. Number two, be specific and be sincere. Tie your recognition to actions and impact. For example, you could be really specific with your friend Betty. You could say, Betty, your workaround to that tech outage we had this last week, where you resolved the registration issue and we were losing students, you solved it in half the time. You kept students from being dropped. You did a really good job. Now, that's pretty specific. It's sincere. It pointed out both the actions and the impact of those actions. So, number two is be specific and sincere. Number three, model the culture that you want to see. You celebrate not just success, but the effort, the growth, the learning, and the teamwork. Because recognition isn't just a reward, it's a signal of what matters and leads to culture change.
That's great advice. And it reinforces that ovation isn't a final checkbox, it's the fuel for the next cycle of improvement.
Exactly. Ovation may close one loop, but it opens the door or opens the next loop. So when it's done well, it creates this rhythm of reflection and renewal. And speaking of reflection, as we're nearing the end of our time, I have a few reflection questions for our listeners today. Are you ready for those, Vernon?
Yes, give them to me. I'll
Oh,
reflect while I'm listening to you.
all right. Vernon, when was the last time you were recognized for your work and what impact did that have on you? Just reflect, don't talk. Number two, when was the last time that you recognized someone else and what impact did you see in them? And number three, what will you do next? How will you build ovations into your leadership practice?
Those questions are reminding me to consider those who need and deserve more ovation in my life. And I think I need to write a note or two when we are done here. Michael, this wraps up our macro leadership series with Ovation. Thanks for guiding us through all the principles from the book. And for our listeners, if you haven't listened to the previous episodes yet, prioritize, match, assign, coach, and reflect. Be sure to check them out. You'll find practical ideas and stories that can help you lead more effectively from the middle, or actually, we're all in the middle of the organization. And please remember to follow, rate, and share the Engaged by Design podcast with folks you know. And if you try out some Ovation practices this week, let us know how it goes. If you have questions, also let us know. Send us a message or tag us online. Until next time, lead well, lead with heart, keep recognizing the good work people do all around you, engage your team with ovations, and always engage by design.